the leaks start coming, and they don't stop coming, because of course they don't. That's Pete Hegseth's entire tenure in one sentence: a walking, talking security breach with a title. The worst member of this administration, and believe me, that's a competitive bracket, but apparently not the only one who treats national security like a group chat. Now, JD Vance, of all people, is unveiling what he thinks about Pete Hegseth's moronic text message leak. And it's a brutal indictment, not just of Pete, but of how little he ever cared about the job he was pretending to do. Vance's texts are just the latest entry in the ever-growing charge sheet around Hegseth, one more tally mark in a career that's circling the drain faster every day. And we're going to get into all of it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into the leaked text messages from Vance, which are, again, just another damning indictment of Pete Hegseth and another tick on the chart of why the criminality is catching up to him, I want to start with Rachel Maddow's breakdown of all the crimes Pete Hegseth is now staring down and why this should be the end for him.
Here, but there's not a story that I more desperately wanted to talk to you about, since this Post story just blew this unbelievable fact out into public view, and I wonder your thoughts on all of it.
I am disturbed by this, I think, as everybody is. Taking a step back from this, Nicole, I don't understand why we're going to war with Venezuela. And I'm not sure the administration has even bothered to try to come up with anything even internally coherent in terms of explaining why Trump has proclaimed that we are at war with Venezuela. My sense is that they wanted to use the Alien Enemies Act to illegally deport people, arrest and deport people from this country that actually weren't subject to deportation. They decided the Alien Enemies Act was a way to do that. They then realized the Alien Enemies Act required a war, so then they declared a war. Then they needed a reason for the war, so then they reverse engineered some sort of reason for the war. Mm-hmm. Ostensibly right now, the reason for the war is to stop drug trafficking into the United States. Today, the man convicted of the largest volume of drug trafficking in the history of the United States was just freed from prison by Donald Trump, the former president of Honduras. So clearly, if that's the area of focus, that isn't the justification for this war. So what are we doing there in the first place? Why are we blowing out of the water and killing people in boats with outboard motors, some of which aren't even pointed towards the United States, let alone verified to have drugs on them, let alone even if they were coming to the United States and they had the capacity to reach the United States and they were filled with drugs, why isn't it possible to just interdict them the way that we do with the Coast Guard, where you go and take the drugs and then put those people on trial and investigate and then follow the drugs to their source of origin and then take care of it there? Like, none of this makes any sense. It feels like they bumbled themselves into a profoundly incoherent and illegal situation in which they decided the one true benefit they were getting out of all of it is that they were getting video game style visuals to play on Fox News and put on TikTok. And they liked that. So now they have put this admiral, the commander of Southern Command, every senior officer in that command, and all of the servicemen and women who serve there in the position of potentially being held liable for murder or war crimes until the statute of limitations on those matters runs. I don't even know what it would be. And by backing and bumbling and shambolically rambling themselves into this mess, I'm less worried about the fate of the bad guys who have gotten us here than I am about the good people who've been put in the way of this mess. And from Admiral Bradley on down. And it's a catastrophe. I think Pete Hegseth, it's impossible to imagine that he survives this as Secretary of Defense. I think he must resign, and I think Republicans will ask for that ultimately once they investigate this. But this is a disaster for this generation of people serving in the United States military. And that is a tragedy more than a farce.
It is genuinely impressive in the worst possible way to be by far the most incompetent and most criminal member of Donald Trump's administration. That's not a low bar. That's an Olympic-level vault over a pit of grifters, sycophants, and third-rate yes-men. But somehow, Pete Hegseth managed to stick the landing. And as I've said since before this administration even lurched into being, when you assemble a Fox News cabinet, you get Fox News results. Chaos dressed up as confidence. Bluster instead of competence. A reality TV government run by people who think scrolling a chyron counts as national security experience. And that's exactly what we've gotten from Pete Hegseth, an almost artistic level of unseriousness. He is a man wildly out of his depth, unaware of the job he's supposed to be doing, and absolutely committed to screwing it up again and again and again. And then, of course, you've got JD Vance, who seems to think the role of vice president is to cosplay as a full-time internet troll, firing off posts like a teenager trying to win a meme war, and turning the government into his own personal message board. And naturally, those two streams of incompetence finally collided right here with this article. JD Vance busted, making dumb response to leaked secrets. Vice President JD Vance appeared to make light of the uproar over Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sharing Yemen strike information on Signal by returning to the chat after the messages released. The Defense Department Inspector General released its unclassified report on Hegseth's use of the messaging app to share sensitive information on Thursday. The 4-page report looked into Hegseth's use of Signal after The Atlantic revealed its editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg was inadvertently added to the chat with top Trump administration officials. While the magazine subsequently published a transcript of the messages, the IG report also included a partial transcript of the chat obtained on March 27th, which showed what happened to the Signal group after The Atlantic wrote about the leak. It showed one person, Vance, return to the group chat amid the fallout. The chat included in the report showed Goldberg left the group on March 16th and the day after the strikes. The first report from The Atlantic was released on March 24th. This chat's kind of dead. Anything going on? The vice president wrote on March 25th. His comment came as questions were being raised over whether top officials in the administration had shared classified information on a messaging app that was not authorized for sharing sensitive information. The partial transcript of the chat does not show anyone responding to the vice president because he's pathetic and no one likes him. After his post, the next alert was the M had changed their profile to MR, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessem set his disappearing message time to 8 hours. CIA Director John Ratcliffe also changed his profile name to just John. As noted in the report, the Defense Department provided the partial transcript of the Signal chat on March 27th, but the record did not include a significant portion of the Defense Secretary's conversation. When we asked whether the information provided represented the information the DoD preserved from the Secretary's cell phone, an OSD official stated that the DoD had provided all messages that were available at the time the screenshots were taken. The report read, the IG report concluded that some previous messages had auto-deleted before being preserved. The report determined Hegseth sent information on the quantity and times of planned military action over an unapproved, unsecure network ahead of the strikes using a personal cell phone to conduct official business and send non-public DoD information through signal risk, potential compromise of sensitive DoD information which could cause harm to DoD personnel, and mission objectives. It read, it also found Hegseth's actions did not comply with rules that prohibit the use of personal devices for official business and using a non-approved messaging application to send non-public Defense Department information. So not only does this damning report lay bare Pete Hegseth's criminal stupidity, it also exposes what a complete loser JD Vance truly is. The Atlantic publishes a piece showing that Pete Hegseth endangered American service members by blasting out sensitive information in some bargain bin group chat, and JD Vance decides that is the perfect moment to crack a little joke. Because nothing says leadership like giggling while national security burns at your feet. And of course you saw the rest of the Trump clown car, cabinet-level officials, high-profile aides, all the wannabe heavyweights scrambling to change their usernames in the chat like middle schoolers trying to hide from the substitute teacher, as if swapping Mike for Patriot Eagle Force 7 was going to stop the leaks. As if it would keep the public from learning that these guys are professional idiots playing government like it's a Discord server. And the icing on the cake? No one even responds to JD Vance. Not a single courtesy. Lol. Not a pity emoji. Nothing. Because no one likes him. Because he is a loser. And because when the house is on fire, the guy making knockoff South Park jokes isn't the one anyone turns to. It's not funny. And it certainly isn't leadership, but it is the perfect snapshot of who these people are. What's being revealed here is not subtle. These are unserious men, reckless men, men who treat the lives of service members as props and national security as content. And they all assume they could laugh it off, cover it up, bury it. But they can't. It's being exposed piece by piece, just like every one of them is going to be further implicated in Donald Trump's cover-up of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which Lawrence O'Donnell broke down right here.
And Donald Trump and his Attorney General have spent the year telling people there is nothing to see in the Epstein files, nothing. There is no reason to release the Justice Department and the FBI's investigative file on Jeffrey Epstein and his criminal co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. The Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released the photographs of Epstein Island today. They said they released the photographs in the interest of transparency. Unlike Donald Trump and his Attorney General and his FBI Director, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee want people to know what they are finding and what they are seeing when material is turned over to them from the Epstein estate and through other subpoenas they have served on financial institutions. The committee has received financial records from JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank, and the Democrats on the committee might be releasing some of that material after they have thoroughly examined it. And when they do, Donald Trump will once again threaten Venezuela or threaten immigrants in this country or in some other desperate and often hateful way try to use other people to distract attention from what his close friend, Jeffrey Epstein, did to that 15-year-old girl who tried to escape from his island, tried to swim for her life. And what Jeffrey Epstein did to the 11-year-old girl he brought to that island. Leading off our discussion tonight